the unthinkable has happened.
Think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
Courtroom showdown that has sent shockwaves through the media landscape, Caroline Levit has done what many deemed impossible. Forget the talking heads, the partisan bickering, the endless cycle of outrage. This isn't just another news story, it's a reckoning. The very airwaves that have for years amplified opinions and sparked debates are now silent, stunned by the weight of an $800 million verdict. Yes, you heard that right. $800 million. That's the price tag a jury has slapped on the once seemingly untouchable daytime behemoth known as The View. Think about the irony. For years, the hosts of The View, with their fiery rhetoric and unwavering convictions, have often pointed fingers, labeling others as purveyors of misinformation and conspiracy theories.
Yet, in a twist that could be ripped from the pages of a legal thriller, it is their own words, their own on-air pronouncements, that have landed them in the crosshairs of a defamation suit of epic proportions. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny.
Poston, names synonymous with daytime television, are now facing a reality they likely never imagined. Their credibility, severely fractured. Their network, ABC, gripped by a crisis that threatens to redefine its very identity. But this isn't just about a single lawsuit or a personal triumph. This is a seismic event, a cultural reset button being firmly pressed. It's a moment where an individual dared to stand up to the perceived might of legacy media and declare unequivocally, no more. So, how did we get here? What exactly was uttered on that brightly lit stage that ignited such a legal inferno? How did Caroline Levit, a figure often relegated to the fringes of political discourse by mainstream outlets, manage to turn what many perceived as a viral media hit job into an $800 million legal knockout? Buckle up, because the story you're about to hear is a roller coaster of accusations, evidence, and a courtroom drama that feels more like a Hollywood blockbuster than a daytime talk show segment gone wrong. To truly understand the magnitude of this verdict, we need to rewind the clock to the moment before the legal bombshell dropped, to the seemingly innocuous appearance that set the entire chain of events in motion. Caroline Levit walked onto The View's set not as a wide-eyed newcomer, but as a seasoned communicator, well aware of the potential pitfalls. This wasn't uncharted territory. It was a known battleground where conservative voices, particularly conservative women, often found themselves not in a discussion, but seemingly in a cross-examination. Yet she stepped into the studio with a clear objective: to discuss national defense, civic engagement, and policy, to present facts and articulate her perspective. What she encountered, however, felt less like a genuine exchange of ideas and more like a meticulously orchestrated ambush disguised as daytime banter. The transcript of that fateful segment paints a stark picture. Joy Behar, known for her sharp wit and often pointed commentary, led the charge. With a condescending squint and a voice dripping with sarcasm, she leaned in, delivering a jab seemingly designed to diminish Levit's intellect and reduce her to mere physical appearance. "Come on," she quipped, the laughter from the studio, audience carrying a distinct edge of mockery. "Caroline's not here for her intellect. Trump probably just thinks she's a 10. The comment hung in the air, less a joke and more an attempt to instantly undermine Levit's credibility. But the pile-on didn't stop there. Sunny Hostin, without even allowing the initial wave of uncomfortable laughter to subside, tossed in her own verbal grenade. "Let's be honest," she declared, her tone dismissive. "This isn't about qualifications. She's just a poster child for privilege. End of story." It was a swift, brutal dismissal, a reduction of Levit's professional achievements to nothing more than perceived societal advantages. And just when it seemed the barrage couldn't get any more pointed, Whoopi Goldberg, the show's moderator, leaned back, arms crossed, and delivered the line that would ultimately ignite the legal firestorm. "If it weren't for wokeness," she stated with an air of finality, "you wouldn't even have a job." Boom! That single word, that seemingly off-the-cuff remark, acted as the spark in a tinderbox. Within hours, the clip exploded across the internet. Hashtags like Caroline Setup and Shotgun, The View Unhinged, began trending on every major social media platform, amplifying the sense of outrage and injustice felt by many who watched the exchange. But Caroline Levit's response in that moment was far from the fiery counterattack many might have expected. No frantic Twitter thread, no tearful Instagram live. Instead, she adjusted her blazer, took a deliberate sip of water, and offered a calm, measured reply. "I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past." It was a moment of steely resolve, a quiet defiance in the face of what many perceived as blatant disrespect. And in the aftermath, as the cameras stopped, rolling and the studio lights dimmed, Caroline Levit made a decision that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of this entire saga. She didn't engage in online squabbles or issue a scathing press release. Instead, she made a phone call, a call to her legal team. The headlines that followed reverberated across the news cycle like thunderclaps. Caroline Levit sues the View for $800 million. ABC in turmoil after explosive defamation suit. Conservative powerhouse drops legal bombshell on daytime television. The smirks that may have been exchanged in the studio suddenly vanished. This was no longer a fleeting Twitter controversy or a partisan spat destined to fade into the background noise of the internet. This was war. Caroline Levit, armed with a formidable legal team, meticulously compiled documentation, and a digital arsenal of footage, launched an $800 million lawsuit, essentially accusing The View of character assassination on a national stage. This wasn't a he said, she said situation, shrouded in ambiguity. Levit's legal team came prepared, their case built on what they presented as irrefutable evidence. They filed transcripts of the exact on-air segments, highlighting every sarcastic inflection and dismissive remark. They submitted raw camera feeds, revealing not just the polished final product, but also the off-air snippets, the snickers, and the alleged high fives that followed the contentious exchange. Perhaps most damningly, they unearthed internal Slack chats and pre-show notes that appeared to reveal a deliberate strategy to provoke and attack Caroline Levit during her appearance. One phrase contained within those pre-show notes allegedly stood out in stark, bold letters. "Let joy open with the looks jab, Whoopi will end it with a dagger." For Levit's legal team, this was the smoking gun, the undeniable proof that this wasn't a spontaneous debate that went awry. It was, they argued, a calculated hit job masquerading as casual daytime conversation. ABC executives, blindsided by the ferocity and the meticulous preparation of the lawsuit, reportedly scrambled. Legal teams worked around the clock, and PR departments went into overdrive, desperately trying to contain the rapidly escalating crisis. Even insiders within ABC reportedly admitted that this wasn't just a PR nightmare, it was a full-blown implosion. The sentiment echoed the words of many who felt that the line between opinion and outright disparagement had been crossed. Suddenly, Caroline Levit wasn't just another guest who had a bad experience on a talk show. She was the individual who had seemingly shattered the illusion of harmless banter and ripped the mask off what some perceived as performative media ambushes. And this, as the lawsuit gained national attention, was only the beginning of the unraveling. The moment the $800 million lawsuit hit national headlines, a palpable shift occurred within the hallowed halls of ABC. The smugness that might have lingered after the on-air segment evaporated, replaced by a frantic scramble behind the scenes. The loudest voices, the ones accustomed to holding court, on national television were now reportedly whispering in hushed tones. The habitual laughers, the ones who punctuated controversial statements with seemingly unconcerned chuckles, fell into an uncharacteristic silence. According to insiders, the first to show signs of concern was Whoopi Goldberg herself, the legendary moderator, the queen of the comeback, the one who had weathered numerous controversies in the past with an almost Teflon-like resilience, was reportedly different this time. Word has it that she reached out to a former colleague, someone who had ties to both her and Caroline Levit, her tone uncharacteristically subdued. The alleged message? A plea for a meeting, a desire to talk, a hope that the situation could somehow be de-escalated before it spiraled further out of control. But the legal machinery had been set in motion, and the momentum was building. Next came Joy Behar, known on air for her fiery opinions and seemingly unwavering fearlessness. But behind the closed doors of the network, a different picture reportedly emerged. Sources suggest that Joy personally contacted one of Caroline Levitt's lawyers, a direct call, bypassing the usual network channels, asking if there was any possibility of a quiet settlement. Allegedly, she even floated the idea of drafting a statement, perhaps even a public apology. It was a move that spoke volumes, a potential indication of the gravity of the situation and a departure from her typically combative public persona. And then there was Sunny Hostin, the only trained attorney at the table. She reportedly skipped the niceties altogether, her focus immediately turning to damage control and potential personal liability. Insiders claim she began consulting privately with her own legal team, separate from ABC's defense. The question she reportedly asked more than once: whether she could be personally removed from the lawsuit altogether, a clear indication of the potential legal ramifications she perceived. While the hosts of The View were reportedly grappling with the unfolding legal inferno, Caroline Levitt's camp remained resolute, their strategy seemingly clear: to pursue accountability without compromise. A concise, one-sentence statement allegedly released by her legal team echoed across Hollywood, a stark declaration of their unwavering stance. Accountability cannot be negotiated. With that single sentence, any hope of a quick resolution or a softening of Levitt's position appeared to vanish. The stage was set for a showdown, the kind that plays out not in the realm of televised debates, but within the confines of a courtroom. The anticipation began to build for the moment when Caroline Leavitt and the hosts of The View would finally face each other in a battle that transcended ratings and spilled into the realm of legal consequences. And then it happened, the moment everyone had been bracing for. Courtroom lights blazing, a swarm of media personnel outside, cameras flashing with relentless intensity, crowds packing into the gallery as if it were a red carpet premiere. Caroline Leavitt versus The View had officially commenced. And let me tell you, the atmosphere felt less like a standard legal proceeding and more like the opening night of a major Hollywood drama. Caroline Leavitt entered the courtroom like a force of nature contained, wrapped in a sophisticated navy suit, her expression composed, not a single hair out of place. No entourage, no theatrical gestures, just an aura of quiet control. She took her seat, folded her hands neatly in her lap, and waited. Across the aisle, the contrast was stark. The hosts of The View, usually so animated and vocal, looked visibly shaken. Whoopi Goldberg, once the embodiment of on-screen bravado, wore dark glasses indoors, avoiding eye contact, her shoulders stiff, her hands appearing to tremble slightly. Next to her, Joy Behar sat ashen-faced and tight-lipped, not a single wisecrack, not even a nervous chuckle escaping her lips. Sunny Hostin, despite her legal background, shuffled legal documents in her lap with a nervous energy, her face betraying a palpable sense of panic. Then, the trial began. Caroline's legal team wasted no time in presenting their case. They opened with what could only be described as a brutal piece of evidence, a slow-motion montage of the very segment that sparked the lawsuit. Clip after clip, insult after insult, mockery layered upon mockery, creating a wall of on-air humiliation. A hush fell over the courtroom, every breath, every fidget amplified by the palpable tension. Next came the receipts, the emails, the Slack messages, the meeting notes. One document, projected onto the courtroom screen in stark, bold type, sent a visible wave of shock through the room. "We need a viral moment. Caroline's the target today." Gasps rippled through the gallery. The judge paused, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. Jurors exchanged glances, disbelief etched on their features. One covered her mouth with her hand. Another slowly shook his head. And then, what many would later describe as the icing on the cake, a leaked voice memo from a producer after the show aired. The alleged message? "We got what we needed, she cracked." But the reality was, Caroline Levitt hadn't cracked. She sat there seemingly unmoved, watching the evidence unfold like a film she already knew by heart. Across the aisle, the impact of the evidence was undeniable. Whoopi's head slowly sank. Joy reached for her water glass but didn't drink. Sunny couldn't stop the nervous fidgeting of her hands. The truth, as presented by Levitt's legal team, was inescapable. This wasn't a mere misunderstanding. It was, they argued, a deliberate takedown. And in that courtroom, Caroline Levit wasn't just fighting a lawsuit. She was seemingly rewriting the rules of engagement between media personalities and their subjects. Then came the moment of truth. The courtroom was packed. The media outside a frenzy of reporters scribbling notes and cameras poised to capture every reaction. Caroline Levit sat calm, her hands still folded in her lap. Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny remained motionless, their faces unreadable masks. The jury filed in, their expressions giving nothing away. The four-person rose, turned to the judge and delivered the verdict. On the count of defamation, we find the defendants liable. That single word, liable, sent a shockwave through the building. But the legal drama wasn't over. The next pronouncement was even more staggering. ABC and The View's co-hosts were ordered to pay $800 million in damages. Let that number sink in. $800 million. This wasn't just a loss. It was a reckoning of unprecedented proportions. The internet erupted. Twitter melted down. TikTok flooded with reaction videos and hastily edited montages. YouTubers streamed their raw, unfiltered responses in real time, some even overcome with emotion on camera. Hashtags like #Caroline wins, The View on trial, Media reckoning, and Whoopi wrecked dominated social media. One anchor on a rival network reportedly exclaimed live on air, "We have just witnessed the most expensive talk show mistake in TV history." And Caroline Levit? No. Gloating no giddy victory speech, she stood, thanked her legal team with quiet dignity, offered a brief, almost imperceptible smile to the flashing cameras, and walked out of the courtroom like a boss. The View, once the ones dissecting and commenting on the news, had become the headline. The very platform built on delivering opinions was now facing the crushing weight of a legal judgment that spoke volumes. The reverberations were felt far beyond the courtroom walls. The morning after the verdict, chaos reportedly reigned within the headquarters of ABC. Panic hit a whole new level. Sources suggest that top advertisers, including some of the biggest global names, began pulling out within hours, their brands suddenly associated with a legal and public relations disaster. PR teams were reportedly drowning in damage control efforts, legal departments were working around the clock, and executives were allegedly engaged in heated debates behind closed doors, the unthinkable question even being raised. Should the View be rebranded or, even more drastically, shut down completely? One internal memo, reportedly leaked to the press, captured the somber mood perfectly. "We underestimated this guest. We underestimated this lawsuit, and now we're facing the worst PR crisis in network history." The memo was starkly stamped, urgent. As for the hosts themselves, Whoopi Goldberg has reportedly been absent from the set, her usual commanding presence replaced by an unsettling void. Joy Behar has seemingly gone completely dark, her typically active public persona vanishing. Sunny Huston, the legal mind at the table, has maintained radio silence. Backstage insiders describe the atmosphere as akin to a funeral, the once vibrant energy of the show replaced by a palpable sense of unease and uncertainty. Meanwhile, Caroline Levit is being hailed by many as a media reform icon. Journalists who once dismissed her as a fringe political figure are now re-evaluating her influence, some even drawing comparisons to figures like AOC, but with a different political leaning and, crucially, with a landmark legal victory under her belt. Her social media accounts have exploded, follower counts surging, comment sections overflowing with messages of support and admiration. One viral tweet perhaps summed up the sentiment best. Caroline didn't just win in court, she won a generation's trust. Another post declared, "The girl who took on daytime TV and won." The moment is even inspiring merchandise, with t-shirts emblazoned with $800 million equals silence and stickers reading, "Next time you mock someone, lawyer up." This isn't just support. For many, it feels like the beginning of a yeast thaw. movement. And while The View scrambles to salvage what remains of its reputation, Caroline Levit stands taller than ever. This wasn't about being attractive or smart, as some of the initial comments seem to imply. This was about accountability. This was about challenging a platform that many felt had operated with impunity for too long. This was about proving that words have consequences, especially when those words are broadcast to millions. So what happens now? The ripple effects are already spreading. Talk show producers are reportedly scrambling to rewrite guest protocols, legal teams are rushing to train hosts on the delicate balance between opinion and defamation, and media executives are holding closed-door meetings to discuss tightening the reins on live narratives. The View, through its own costly misstep, has inadvertently made one thing abundantly clear. You can't just say whatever you want anymore and walk away with a smirk, not when individuals like Caroline Leavitt are willing to fight back with receipts. Strategy and a calm voice that can rattle even the loudest platforms to their very foundation. Let's be honest, this verdict didn't just flip Caroline's world, it flipped everything. Every host, every producer, every network just received a lesson they won't soon forget. Words have weight, and now, demonstrably, they have.